I'm Jenny from herworklife.com, and today I'm talking to the lovely Lisa Edge Davies about her career journey. Lisa has a healthcare communications background. She's been in healthcare for about over 10 years, but she's been actually running her own digital agency for the last 10 years. But recently she retrained to be a landscape gardener. And I think her story is really inspiring for someone who maybe is in a job that they're not happy with, or they're not actually following their passion in life and they want to take some action. So, welcome, Lisa.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks so much for agreeing to this. Lisa, can you start by telling us a bit about your background, sort of your early career, and how you first, before you set up your own digital agency?
Before I set up a digital agency, well, I've worked in healthcare communications for 20 years. So, working as an account manager, an account executive in big agencies. So, spending a lot of my time working with clients, talking to them about their big business and their brand and how to talk to their customers about it. And a lot of time spent in offices in front of computers, on meetings, in very long meetings with flip charts and whiteboards and that kind of thing. So, yeah, a real kind of corporate life.
Right. So you were doing that for quite a while and working for somebody else, but then obviously you made quite a big change and decided to set up on your own. How did that come about?
That came about through my husband, who is a graphic designer, who started to get involved in the internet when it first came out. I remember him coming home and saying to me, "Oh, there's this really weird thing happened, and it's to do with computers, and they're all like linked together, and you can share information." I thought, "Oh God, that's weird." We were still writing things out on bits of paper at work and sending faxes and stuff like that. And as the industry grew, and obviously the internet became a huge thing that's changed everybody's lives, hence us sitting talking now. He then began to get involved in healthcare, and it just became one of those natural things where our kind of careers just gradually came together. And my experience working with pharmaceutical clients and healthcare brands, and his experience on the digital side, it made sense for us to work together. And also the fact that we were married and had children together kind of made our lives a bit easier as well.
And I mean, during that period, what were the key what were the best bits for you working, like having your own business finally? Tell us about sort of what things you really enjoyed. What was the difference?
Oh, there's loads of great things about having your own business. Just being in control of your own strategy. So getting to make those really big decisions about who you want to be as a company, how you want to be perceived, and also just things about the kind of the morals of the company, what you do want to do and don't want to do, rather than being in a situation where you're just part of this big ship that kind of rolls along and you're part of the crew, and your only choice really is to jump overboard or stay on board. There's not much else you can do to turn the ship round. Whereas in your own company, you're obviously sometimes making some really hard decisions and quite scary decisions, but ultimately it's your choice about what you're doing.
Yeah, and you touched on scary decisions. I mean, what other challenges were there running your own business?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. Well, being small, you haven't got the financial weight of a big organisation behind you. So when you have to make decisions about, particularly when you're running anything to do around IT, like we are, about purchasing, and effectively, you're buying it yourself. You can't just click your finger and say, "I need a new server," or "I need to upgrade the alarm system," or you have to think, "Oh, okay, it's going to cost £20,000. How am I going to finance it? How long is it going to take to pay off? How many clients do I have to make that happen?" Things like that. It's much more grown up, basically, than working in a big company, because you're ultimately taking responsibility for your own financial health.
Yes, yeah. And you ended up employing quite a few people, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, we've changed size at various times, but had sort of 15, 20 people just doesn't sound like many, but when you have to manage them, it feels like quite a lot.
It does sound quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, were there challenges working with your husband? Because obviously it was a partnership. Was that a challenge, or was that actually quite easy to do?
There were challenges. It's not as challenging as you would imagine, actually, but you have to compartmentalise what you're doing. So you have to go to work and be prepared to have a little gate that comes down and go, I'm at work now.
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared for the fact that you will argue, you will disagree, of course, like you always do with people at work. You'll have differences of opinion. The difficult thing is that you don't have to go home, you have to go, right, I'm at home now. And although I was really cross with you an hour ago about that decision that you made, I've now got to ignore that and just go, oh, cup of tea, darling.
Well done. It sounds like a really exciting period of your life with lots going on. But then recently, in the last year, you've decided to make quite a career redirection, haven't you? Can you tell us about that?
Huge. Yeah, huge change. It's such a big change. I'm trying to think how to describe how it happened. Yes, I've basically retrained into a completely, totally different industry. Nothing to do with healthcare, nothing to do with big business, nothing to do with the corporate world. And I've retrained as a garden designer and a landscape designer. So very, very different world. Horticulture, construction, just a totally different terrain. Very interesting.
And I suppose the obvious question is why? Why landscape gardening?
Why? Because it's something that I've been interested in for about 20 years, which is interesting because that's about the time that I've been working. So it's an interesting parallel there. I bought my first book about garden design 20 years ago. I found it a few weeks ago. So it's obviously something that's been there in my mind for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, I've always been interested in design in terms of architecture and kind of shapes and symmetry, and I've always felt really drawn to it. But I think for a long time I didn't really understand how to turn that into a job. I just thought it was something that was fascinating. And I think because I'd been brought up in that era of you're an intelligent woman, you must go to school and you must study business study and economics, and then you must get a very important job in a large shiny glass office. That being successful was sold to us as not you must put on a pair of work boots and go to the horticulture studio. I think the culture's changed a lot in terms of what people think a career is. A career, when I was at college, was about business and moving to London, all that kind of thing. And I think that's just changed totally now.
Yeah, I think we were both brought up in the Thatcher years, weren't we? Where in 1980s we were striving to get up that corporate ladder, weren't we?
Oh, I couldn't wait to get my first briefcase.
Yes. So this
now,
is
right away.
So it took you 20 years then to actually come back to do something, finally to actually take some action for a career path or a passion that you kind of always wanted to do but never did.
I know, it sounds really wet, doesn't it?
No.
Took 20 years thinking about it. Yeah, because I think what happened was I obviously grew up along the way, had a family, and I suppose it just got to that stage where you think, I really want to do this, and I've just got to get on with it and do it. I can't not do it, otherwise I will be really, really sad.
Now tell us about, because I know this story, but I think I'd really like to share it because it's really it's quite intriguing. Tell us about the tipping point, the point that you actually finally decided to make that move.
Yeah, it's quite a good one. Like most of my good stories, it starts in the pub. So I was miles away. I was in Wales, in the middle of the countryside, in a pub watching a band. And in the way you do, when you end up in a sort of crowd of people, ended up talking to this woman who never met before, didn't know. She's lovely, chat, and so said to her, "What do you do?" And she said, "Oh, I'm a garden designer." And I, quite merry, said to her, "Oh, that's what I want to do. I really, really want to be a garden designer." And she looked at me and said, "Well, why don't you?" And I said, "But I can't." "Why can't you? Tell me why you can't." I said, "Well, I don't know if I'd make any money." And she said, "Well, I've been doing it for 20 years. I've got 3 children. My husband left me 20 years ago. I brought my family up. I'm a single parent. I make my living as a garden designer." So I thought, okay, right, objection number 1. And I said, "Well, I don't know which course to study. Over the years, I've looked at various colleges and courses and found it really difficult to differentiate between what was a good course, how much I would have to pay. It just was very undifferentiated. And as someone from the corporate world, I couldn't make a decision. I just couldn't see what the quality one that I should go for was. And she said to me, "Well, look, what you need to do is you need to find someone who you really respect and then be taught by them." And I sort of thought, yeah, actually, that makes perfect sense. I said, "Well, who taught you?" She gave me the name of a designer who's got a very distinctive name. And I kind of thought, oh, I can definitely remember that. And I said, "Where did you learn?" She said, "Oh, I learned in Bristol." And I thought, oh, okay, well, there you go, never mind. Went home, next day, got up, Googled the name of this designer to find out that actually he'd retired. I said, oh no, this is looking so promising. But his son was the principal of a garden design college with 2 sites, one in Bristol and one in Cobham, which is about 5 minutes away from where I live. Those clap of thunder moments of thinking, this is it, I'm going to do it. I was absolutely it. And I was off on like a mission. I was like 5 hours on the computer researching about who the people were who taught the course. And just as I looked into it more and more, I just thought, this is it. This has been given to me on a plate. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. All my objections have been swept aside. I've got to do it.
Wow. So talk us through what actually happened then.
So then I went along and met the people at the college and had a fantastic day talking to the 2 principal lecturers and left there. And honestly, I just thought, I can't go back to work now. I've got to do this. If someone had come along and given me a magic wand and said, you can start it now, I would have been there. I would have just dropped everything. I was so excited about the prospect of doing it. And then I had about 5 months where I had to kind of basically persuade everyone else in my life that this was a really good idea. And I hadn't gone mad.
Oh dear.
Which involved all sorts of things, including actually going and then having to earn the money to fund the course. Because of course I had to actually pay for this. Mm-hmm. And then just explaining to people endlessly what I was doing. Because, of course, a lot of people, when I said, oh, I'm going to go and train as a garden designer, are like, you what? What do you mean? Why? And then you have to go, well, because I've always wanted to do it, and da-di-da-di-da, and go through a great big story. So, yeah, quite an interesting preparation, and also preparing at work, because it meant that I would be out of the office for 1 day a week, but also that I would have to study a lot, which meant that I would be working in the evenings and the weekends. So quite a lot of considerations for my family as well, because I basically had to pretty much tell them, because I was quite determined that I would be doing this, and I wouldn't be available for general domestic labour, etc., that they were doing that themselves.
Did you find, Lisa, that most people were supportive of you, or did you have a lot of sort of doubting Thomases, sort of say, oh, is that wise? What was the general reaction from people?
That is a really interesting question, because I'll be honest with you in that I didn't actually care what anyone thought. I know that sounds selfish, but I knew that I had to do this and that I had the means to do it, that I could earn the money to fund myself to do it, and then ultimately the person who's going to have to work really hard and make some sacrifice was me. So I kind of thought, if I don't do this now, no one is ever going to come along and sort of draw up in a pumpkin carriage and open the door and say, "Hey, Lisa, have a year off. Get in. Come on. Just go and do what you want." It's never going to happen, is it? So I had to kind of put my foot down. Having said that, most people were really positive and sort of went, "Wow, that's exciting. Tell me about it." And if anyone didn't think it was positive, I have to say I didn't listen.
No. I mean,
because they weren't doing it, I was, so.
Yeah. I think it's a really good lesson for everybody, really, is just to take action. But you also kind of gave yourself a bit of a safety net as well, didn't you, through, working to save up some money, to have enough money to do it, to make sure that everything else was functioning well. Because, it's a big step. You were coming out of a business which you were a linchpin of, to do something completely different, and you knew that you weren't going to be able to give it 100%. So your business 100%. So it's laying the foundations, isn't it? So how long did the course last?
Well, it was only for one academic year, because another thing that was great about the course that was brilliant for me was that it was very intense, and that's how it was put together. It was for people who were really serious about doing this and wanted to get on and get in there. So yeah, I couldn't have done a 3-year course. I wouldn't have been able to. I just wouldn't have been able to sustain the energy for 3 years. I wanted to just get in and really go for it.
Yeah.
So.
And at the same time that you were studying, the business just suddenly had a really peak activity time, didn't it?
Yeah, of course, yes. As soon as I started on the course, we then got invited to pitch for a really big piece of business, which of course we won, which was really, really exciting. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? We won the piece of business. It was very high profile for clients and involved lots of, showing it off around the rest of the affiliates and all that kind of thing. So really kind of high profile and very, very busy. So I started the process that at some point the wheels would fall off and I would freak out, because it was always going to happen. And I went into it knowing that at some point I would just go, "Wah!" and it happened. The other people on the course that I did at the college were really, really supportive and lovely, and we've just had a really fantastic group of friends. But also the people who were running the course were very understanding and pragmatic about the fact that I was actually doing other things and couldn't just totally walk away. And whilst I certainly had to hit all of the pieces of work that had to be delivered, they did give me a little bit of leeway in terms of not looking at me strangely when I freaked out. My brain would explode across the room. They were very sympathetic, which helped a lot.
God, well done. I just think you just put so much focus and effort into that year. You must have been absolutely drained. And obviously you passed.
Yes, I did. Yes, and I even managed to get a credit, which was amazing, because I went in aiming for a pass, which I know sounds a bit defeatist, but kind of as someone who I set myself quite high standards, I had to say to myself that I was not going to give myself a hard time if I just passed, because for me, just passing and then doing everything else, I awarded myself a really high mark for that.
It's incredible. And actually, you've even got how many clients have you got now?
I've got 2.
2 clients.
Right, yeah.
And how did they come about?
Well, through marketing. So I suppose I'm really lucky in having that marketing background. I started off doing some promotion while we were still doing the course. I mean, really low-key, local stuff, but it's a different kind of industry. It's about local, it's about recommendation. So yeah, just doing some promotion locally and through schools, And yeah, so it's really, really exciting.
Wow.
And it's so good, such a different challenge.
And was that sort of the marketing, was that advertising, or was it word of mouth or referral marketing, or how did you, when you say it was kind of low key?
Yeah, no, it was promotion through my children's school.
Great.
Through charity events that was going on there. And also just effectively, I've been driving around the place that I live, talking to builders and property developers and looking at houses that are being built and just being quite pushy, walking to people's gardens and saying, oh, you're doing lots of building work. What are you going to do about your garden then?
Fantastic. Well done. So proactive.
Yeah.
So proactive. And so what's next for you? What's the future? How do you see your future panning out now?
Well, I'll probably get arrested for trespassing if I keep walking to people. But the future, well, it's really interesting actually, because taking the step of looking at doing something completely different has taken me into a totally different area in terms of work that I didn't expect to end up in if you talked to me 20 years ago. But also what it's done is it's made me look at aspects of my, core job that I've been doing forever and realise that there's certain parts of that job that I don't want to walk away from. So what I'm hoping, continue with the garden design, build that up, because I want that something to be something that I can do until I'm 70. Or just don't want to do it anymore, but also continue with selected bits of my marketing work and look at perhaps doing more coaching with other people who are setting up new businesses. So I've realised, having been on this amazing journey with this group of people that I was in college with, some of whom are amazing artists and graphic designers and illustrators and people like me who come from business, a lot of them have come out and they're now having to market themselves and set up, and they don't know how to do it. So I've kind of shot myself in the foot a bit in the way that I've now essentially got 3 jobs instead of 1. But I know where I'm headed, and I know exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah,
which is a feeling really, really exciting.
That's fantastic, because you're then using your skills and expertise, from 20 years in marketing to help other people with this new passion that you have, which was always there. The passion was always there, but actually you're taking action and you've got your own business now. So, I mean, what advice would you give to anyone who was, perhaps, as I said at the beginning, in a job that they're a bit stuck with, or they're not following their passion, with the energy and the enthusiasm that you've got, what would you say to them?
I would say that be honest with yourself. Be really honest about what it is that you want to be doing, because I think that's the hardest bit, is working out what do I really want to do, and having to take the brave step of thinking I might make less money, or I might have to work on Saturday, or I might have I might have to do long hours, I might have to do shifts. Also, you might have to retrain. You might have to go back to being the person who walks into the room and sits down and thinks, I know nothing about doing that. Because that's just the weirdest experience, coming from a situation where you've been doing something for so long that you feel confident in what you're doing and you understand pretty much how things work, to then go into a situation where you suddenly think, I don't know how to do this. I've got to learn it all again, which is really exciting, but kind of really scary. So I think, be honest about not only what you want to do, but what you are prepared to do to get there, because I don't think you can be half-hearted about it. If you want to do it, you've got to do it. And a really good example of that is somebody calls me actually saying that they were at the beginning of the process of wanting to retrain to be a garden designer. And on the phone, they presented to me, without prompting, about 6 or 7 reasons why they couldn't do it. About how they couldn't do it because their dog was ill, and they couldn't do it because their car wasn't very reliable. And I just thought, there's nothing I can say that is going to make this happen for you, because actually you're not really in the right place of being honest about what you prefer to do.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I think we could probably, a lot of us could identify with that actually. So, Lisa, if someone wanted to get in contact with you for any aspect really of what you're doing, whether it's in the digital marketing arena or in the landscape gardening arena, how can they contact you? What's the best way?
Well, I'm just setting up my website, so they could Google me. So my website's really easy. It's my name.co.uk, so it's lisaedgedavies.co.uk. Okay. Or they can find me in Yellow Pages, or they can look up my digital agency, which is creative.uk.com. I'll find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Lisa, honestly, this has been a brilliant interview. Thank you so much. I think it's really inspirational for a lot of people. So thanks so much.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Cheers.